Hi, everybody. Hey, are you thinking, what does test optional even mean? What are the new changes about the SAT that are coming up? I want you to listen and learn today because I'm teaching a free continuing education course to help you homeschool high school. This one is about high school testing. My name is Lee Benz, and I'm the homescholar. And my mission is to make your life easier. It's to make tests easier for your teens. My mission is to help your teenagers get better test scores and hopefully earn bigger scholarships so that your entire family will benefit from what you're learning today. So I hope that you're ready to learn about high school testing. I have a fantastic workbook today. It looks just like this. So if you could chime in on chat and just tell me, what are you most concerned about today? Like when I said high school testing, this is not the most, compelling class that people ever register for. So I'm pretty sure you're nervous about something. So why don't you go ahead and just share with me what test you're most nervous about? My name is Lee Benz. We're going to get started in, it looks like just one more minute. So we just have a second to say what we're most nervous about. And I am Lee Benz. We're going to get started in 1 minute. SAT and ACT and a prep. Yeah. Make sure you have your workbook ready. And oh, one thing, I wanted to give everybody a free book today because I'm not going to have too much time to get deep into AP and CLEP. So I wanted to give you a book about AP and CLEP so I could focus on the other ones, because I'm sure, like Nicole was saying, SAT, ACT, and test prep is more top of mind for most homeschoolers. Well, look, it's time for us to get started already. Can you believe that? So now is the time for you to turn off your phone. And I really hope that you have your workbook printed and ready, because we're going to get started today talking about high school testing, simply explained. My name is Lee Benz. My job is to help you homeschool high school with confidence. And this class is absolutely perfect for you. If you're eager to learn more about PSAT, SAT, ACT, and more, and you're eager to learn more about college admission that will maximize scholarships so that you can avoid the burden of massive college debt for your children. Many of us are motivated to learn about tests because they're so closely tied to scholarships. So please stay for the whole workshop. I'm going to be giving an awesome discount for the Gold Care Club today, and I'm going to spend plenty of time answering your questions at the end. When I do make the offer for the Gold Care Club, I'm going to be giving you a coupon code with a $30 value, and I'm going to be including an online homeschool convention with purchase, and there's going to be more goodies as well. So it's going to be worth your time to pay attention to. Now, it's 1 minute after the hour. Everybody should be here. So, what I want to do is to give you a special thank you gift for attending today. No purchase necessary. In your workbook, you just write down tiny URL AP CLEP, tiny URL / AP CLEP. And then after class, when you type that into your browser, you'll be able to download this book on the AP and CLEP test. Okay? Now, I need to know, what are your biggest concerns about tests? In just a couple of words: core scores, test options, choosing the right one, how do you score well, rotten test takers, PSAT freak out, scholarships, poor scores, says Christy, struggling learners, maybe, on the test, choosing the right one. Natasha, yes, it's a big deal. Hoping the students finish, yes. If they're adequate, yeah, all of those things. We feel big anxieties about high school tests. And I know everybody's sending in these fantastic questions, and I felt exactly what you are feeling now. And I know that there's really a dizzying amount of information. So what I've tried to do is distill it down to actionable information that's going to give you what you need to know as simply as possible, but also give you the key information to help you get great test scores, even if they're not a great test taker and you don't know which test, to answer those questions for you. So here's what we're going to learn. Understand that PSAT, NMSQT, that is Big acronym, isn't it? We'll talk about SAT, ACT, CLT, way more acronyms. We'll talk about what is the best test prep and how to understand the college level subject tests like AP. You're going to get a lot of information today, but if you're confused about anything I say, I've got plenty of time for Q&A at the end. We're definitely going to get this all figured out, okay? Now, let me just explain to you, for those of you who haven't met me, how I got here. I have two boys that I homeschooled all the way through high school, and every college where we applied gave great scholarships based on their SAT test scores and their GPA. Because of their test scores and GPA, we received full tuition scholarships to both for both children, right, to their first choice university. Now, in my home, I personally focused more on SAT and CLEP. We worked diligently on test prep. We worked to balance school and test prep, and the rewards were huge, $184,000 in scholarships. But those are the tests that are right for my children, not necessarily for your children. But test prep is important and available to everybody. Yvonne's son was granted a presidential scholarship based on grades and test scores too. I think they won the full tuition that she was thinking they might win. Both she and her son did their part because of limited finances for college. So her son focused a lot on test prep, did a lot of timed practice from official test book. That was his part. It was like a full-time job, right? He said, and it's true. And Yvonne spent her time working on record keeping and carefully documenting his excellent GPA, which was 4.0 unweighted. And in the end, he was National Merit Commended Scholar, but got a perfect score on the ACT. And shared more distressing news. This is kind of on the opposite end of the spectrum. Her son, and it had a great transcript and course descriptions, but she didn't understand that they needed to test early and set his college targets based on test scores and improve his test scores that were there, right? So this workshop is going to help you to finish strong. So I want you to pay close attention because Anne sort of figured this out a little too late. And I don't want that to happen to you. 11th grade is not too late. Somebody asked me about 11th grade. So we want to make sure that you can experience some remarkable success, even if you have an ordinary student or even if you're applying to Ivy League schools. And this information is going to help. Now let's start with the big problem of tests. It's the acronyms. These are like random letters in meaningless order. PSAT, SAT, ACT, AP, CLEP, more. It's enough to make your head explode. And you're sitting there as a homeschool parent saying, but why? Why are we doing this? Tests were not important through elementary school or middle school. Why are we doing this at all, right? Well, so here's the problem. Colleges are struggling with uneducated, undereducated public and private school students. And so colleges need outside documentation to be sure that the transcript matches what the child actually knows. So what's really important about tests is that this kind of outside documentation is what earns college admission and scholarships. These tests prove your child is ready for college level work. Now, listen carefully. Some colleges are test optional, but you don't know if your college is going to be test optional. You don't know if the college that's going to give your child a full tuition scholarship is test optional. You don't know if they will give scholarships at all without tests, or if there are other perks based on tests that could benefit your student. And so having information about these tests really matters. Now, there are many sources of outside documentation, actually. Most high schools will use tests as their form of outside documentation, but we're not limited to tests, right? The other options are the simpler tests, SAT, ACT, the more complicated tests, the CLEP and AP, but there's also dual enrollment in community college or online college courses. There's great letters of recommendation that come from activities that your child is involved in. There are professional and accurate transcript. I can't even tell you how important the transcript is. There is thorough course descriptions that can describe the rigor of your homeschool. There's a work resume or activity list. That's a great source of outside documentation. And for some students, it's a performance or interview or competition, like football competition or piano competition, something like that. So you can see there's many sources of outside documentation, and I talk about many of those in other classes, but today I'm going to be focusing a lot on SAT, ACT, and their pre-tests. And I'm going to give you that book again. I'll list it one more time on CLEP or AP so you can study about those later on. So I don't want you to panic. There are other forms of outside documentation, even if your child's not a brilliant test taker, okay? But let's get started talking about the pre-college admission tests, okay? These are the ones that are not used for college admission, but they kind of get you ready for college admission. And the first one we're going to talk about is the PSAT, because it's usually the first test that homeschooling parents normally use as a homeschooler, okay? So on your workbook, I want you to write down that the purpose of the PSAT is fun and profit. Fun and profit. Now, I know what you're thinking. Are you kidding me? Take a test for fun? What are you, nuts? Well, let me explain. There are many different flavors of the PSAT, and for many kids, it's all just for fun. Nobody gets hurt. The scores don't matter. Now, the PSAT, the P in PSAT, it stands for the pre-SAT or practice SAT. And again, the scores don't matter. It's just for fun. Those scores are just for you, the parent, the guidance counselor. Now, there are the different flavors of PSAT, but they all cover basically just reading and writing and math. Okay? The PSAT 8-9, that is for kids in 8th and 9th grade. It's, easier. The PSAT 10 is for 10th grader. It's the content is similar to the SAT, but not identical. Then the third one is the PSAT NMSQT. That, not confusing at all to have an acronym that's 9 letters long. It is very similar to the SAT in terms of subject matter and difficulty. Okay. Now the PSAT NMSQT is taken in 11th grade. So you're taking the test just for fun in 10th grade. Nobody gets hurt. It has these purposes, right? Purpose number 1 is practice for students. Yeah, they're asking themselves, should I be nervous or afraid about this test? The answer is, why no? So they get practice figuring out, no, I don't need to be nervous or afraid. They sit in a room for, 3-4 hours, filling in bubbles on a timed test with strangers in a room full of smelly teenagers. They have to learn to find the bathroom quickly during breaks. None of this hurts people. Okay. It's practice for the parents. How do I register for my child? Do we have the right kind of test prep? Do we have the right kind of computer to take this test? The parents learn how to interact with the schools enough to register for the test, and whether their school registers for the test very, very early in May for the October test, or whether they register in September for the October test. That's a pretty wide range. So it's really hard to get scholarship worthy PSAT scores if you take it cold without any preparation. So taking the PSAT in 10th grade will be especially helpful for kids who might earn big scholarships. Now, I got to spell out NMSQT because I know it's confusing. Okay. And technically, you're supposed to put these letters all together for the 11th grade tests. It's way too many letters to count. Okay. NMSQT stands for National Merit Scholarship Qualifying Test. That means that when you take the test in 11th grade, your student may begin to qualify for the National Merit Scholarship. So this is how you first find out that your child might be able to compete in order to do that. But in order to enter this qualifying test, you have to take the PSAT in 11th grade. 11th grade in October. So here's what I need you to write down. The PSAT NMSQT only counts for scholarships when taken in October of 11th grade. Wow. So the National Merit Scholarship is actually a complicated, very, very long application process. It requires prompt retrieval of information. It takes a lot of effort from the parent, really, to win if the child gets great test scores. So how do you become the guidance counselor for a potential National Merit Scholar? This is important if your child tends to score high. Okay, if your child gets in the 90th percentile or greater on standardized tests, you do need to be prepared. You need to have two things that you've planned ahead for. Number one is test preparation. Again, it's really hard to get a super high score without test prep. And number two is you have to have your homeschool records ready to go. Once you're notified that you're in the competition, you only have a few weeks to submit everything, and they require course descriptions. So having those course descriptions ready is just a huge deal. But careful test preparation will help maximize your child's score. I will say that a lot of the score on a single test boils down to dumb luck, right? Because maybe they didn't have a good day. Maybe they were experiencing raging hormones. Not that teens would ever be, I don't know, sleep deprived or have hormone issues or break an arm the night before because they went skateboarding. You don't know, right? So there is some luck involved. Now that you know why the PSAT, remember the why is fun and profit, okay? Let me tell you what the test is like. First of all, it is an inexpensive, standardized test. The cost is under $20. So if your state requires an annual assessment or standardized test, this is the cheapest one by far. It's not 50 or 60 bucks like most tests, it's under 20. It's multiple choice, it covers reading, writing, and math. There is no essay. The math is more about algebra and general math, and a little bit less on geometry. Calculators are allowed, so using calculators in your daily math lessons is a good idea at this age. Now, this is important. The PSAT is going to be online and completely digital in 2023 to 2024. What? Blew your mind, right? We're going to talk more about that later. But what you need to understand is that the test questions are going to remain the same. So test prep is going to remain the same, but the way the students will take the test will be different in the years to come. Now, where do you take it? At the local public or private high school. Even when the test is online, it will still be taken at schools. When? It counts for scholarships in October of 11th grade. but it's also offered in the spring for 10th graders. How do you register? Usually you have to call the school to register. But I do believe that because it's going online, it will be easier for homeschoolers to access this test because the schools aren't going to be charged uh, a certain amount for each test prep packet that they have to give out. So it's basically going to be free to have you take the test as far as the school cares. So I think it'll be easier for us to register in the long run. And then how do you use the scores is to predict their SAT score. Okay. It will tell you how good they're going to do on that one. Now, at this point, you're probably thinking, well, what about test prep? I've got it. It's time to freak out about test prep. I know it can be a little intimidating, and I've been there. And I know that there are some people out there that will expect you to do, I don't know, 2-3 hours a day, every single day, test prep all the time. But by far the best test preparation for the PSAT is normal, natural education. That is why homeschoolers have higher test scores than public or private school students, because we care more about education and less about test prep. Okay. But what does test prep look like for the PSAT? The best test preparation by far, hands down, is literacy. A quality education is going to provide the best test scores. So the best test prep, especially in 9th and 10th grade, is literally reading, writing, and math consistently every day throughout the school year. Reading, writing, and math. That's the answer. There is no substitute for a good education, no matter what the level of your child. But there are other ways to prepare for the PSAT. So let's talk about how you can work on the soft skills of test preparation. Let me explain. These soft skills are going to help your child learn to be relaxed and ready for a test, knowing it's not going to hurt them. I do not suggest cramming. I do not suggest quizzing kids until they cry. Instead, these are suggestions that will help make their lives more pleasant. Now, these are things that you can do just 2 weeks before they experience their first standardized assessment test in front of a bunch of public school kids. Okay. First thing you do is adjust their sleep cycles. This is so much more important for homeschoolers who may or may not start school at like noon, right? So you want to make sure that you adjust their sleep cycle so they're used to being awake at the time of day when they have to take the test. Next thing you want to do is to review the student guide that they give you when you register. And then you have them take one practice test timed. That will help them to feel comfortable with the timing of the test. You do want to review your homeschool transcript together so that they know what classes they've taken and what grades they're getting. Chances are you haven't talked to them about that before, like, oh, we don't call it social studies, we call it American history. And oh, by the way, you got an A. But when they ask you that in class, when you're going through the initial stages of registering, then they're going to want to know that. Now, on test days, these are the things that become extremely important to giving them a good experience. You need to make sure that they eat breakfast with protein so they don't get hungry within the 4 hours that they're gone. They need to bring photo ID. A driver's permit, driver's license is best. But there is the SAT does, the College Board who provides this test does have a form that you can fill out to be an alternative ID for homeschoolers. You want to bring 4 sharpened pencils. Even if they are going to be taking the test online, they may need to be doing something with a pencil, so be prepared. Bring a healthy snack, including food and water, but not candy. Do not bring candy. Candy is a huge no-no because of the sugar high and sugar crash, just devastating to test scores. Next, you bring a calculator that they're familiar with. And there are some rules of the type of calculators that you can use. And low tech is better than high tech. You cannot use your phone. You cannot use the calculator on your phone. And then you want them to locate the bathroom. Surprisingly important because they have like 10 minutes to find it and get back to their chair, which is hard if you've never been to that school before. And finally, identify a pickup location. So there is absolutely no concern in their mind about exactly what happens after tests. They don't have to spend one single brain cell on that. Now, here's a big pro tip for this one. The one thing that you can do to prepare them for the PSAT is to help them gain experience with fill in the bubble tests and group testing situations. You don't necessarily have to use the PSAT 9 or 10. It can be literally any standardized test. So if your homeschool support group offers an annual assessment in middle school for ninth graders, that's what I recommend you do for test prep so that they learn how to sit there without being traumatized. Okay. For 8th, 9th, 10th grade, that is fantastic experience for your children. I believe that taking the PSAT or SAT too early can backfire, making kids feel inadequate and incapable. But when they're taking an annual assessment, that's grade level, like the, I don't know, ninth grade CAT test. Okay. It's what most kids should do well in ninth grade, right? So then they're taking this annual assessment without freaking out because it's all appropriate for what they've been learning. Now, the next pro tip is that there is actually an alternative to the PSAT, and it's called the pre-ACT. You hear of it less often. They don't seem to change their practice test too often. It is not tied to the National Merit Scholarship, but it does have some scholarships on its own. All right, we've learned about our first test, the PSAT, and all its different flavors. We've learned about how to develop a right attitude for our teenagers to make those tests less stressful, which is why these practice tests are started anyway, right? To help kids be less stressful. So in this coming section, we're going to be talking about the college admission tests, the real deal, the SAT, ACT, and CLT. So first thing you're thinking is why? Once again, why, right? There's a lot in the news about some colleges being test optional. So here's what you need to know. Right now, 1/3 of colleges are test optional to get in, 1/3. But often those tests are not optional if you need scholarships. They are not optional to get into the honors program. They are not optional for class placement in many schools. And the tests may not be optional for homeschoolers or students that come from an unaccredited public or private high school. There are unaccredited public high schools. They are just like you. And like you, they may be required to take those tests. So yes or no, I want you to answer in chat. Yes or no. Do you know exactly what colleges you will apply to and exactly their test policy during your child's senior year? No, of course you don't. I didn't either. And what's funny is we had a first choice college and I knew everything about their policy, but I still couldn't have told you what their policy was going to be in, 2 years from now. And that's why you need to know this information about the SAT or ACT because you don't know what's going to happen in the future. And these tests can determine if your child gets in or not. It determines scholarships or not. And these are tests that can potentially freak out parents and teens. So you need to make sure you're not scared of them right now. And that's why I want to try to explain this as simply as possible. Okay, so let's talk about the SAT first. On your workbook, I put the website. So you don't even have to write down the website. There is an alternative test to the SAT. It's called the ACT. We'll talk about that next. Now you have to be careful when you think about the SAT, okay? Because it has the same three letters as another standardized test, just to make it super confusing, right? So there's another SAT test. It's called the Stanford Achievement Test. This is not what I'm talking about today. That is a completely different test. It just happens to have the same three-letter acronym. Today, we're talking about the college admission test. This is the SAT that is put out by the College Board for the purposes of college admission, the one that is most like the SAT. Now, what is this test for? It is used by college to figure out college admission. Is the student ready for college? Right? It's used to determine college scholarships. Because if you're qualified for college admission, are you smarter than the average bear, thereby deserving scholarships? Now, the other way that you can use the test is as an annual assessment. So if your state requires annual assessment for a homeschooler, use the SAT. It's cheap, okay? It's something they need to take anyway for college admission. You might as well use this one instead of a different standardized test. So it will save you money when you use this one instead of others. Now, when do you take it? This is what I recommend. Although I will say you know your child best, but I suggest that you take the test twice if possible, in early spring of 11th grade and late spring of 11th grade. Now listen up, if you have a really smart child, if your child took the test way before 11th grade, have them take it again because you want them to have the highest possible SAT score. Okay. Where do you take the SAT? At public high school or private high school? Those are your two options. If you don't like one location, you can choose a different location. There can be a surprising difference between the places where you take it. In fact, one of my Gold Care members told me that her son raised his score significantly just by going to a different school. Now, what does the test contain? It basically covers reading, writing, and math. There is a fancy word for reading, writing, and math. It's called literacy. Okay, so that's good. One thing you need to know about their reading and writing, though, they have come up with a fancy name for that. They call it EBRW, evidence-based reading and writing. That word drives me insane. Okay, evidence-based reading and writing. And the score is 200 to 800 for that section. And then the math, notice how it does not have a fancy name. They just call it math. Also gets a score of 200 to 800. And then those two scores are combined together for a total score. So the total score is 400 to 1600. Okay. So in the SAT, you add them together. Now, an average score, let's say somebody is absolutely, positively, completely average. An average score is 500 per section. So 600 is good, 700 is great, and 800 is perfect. Or if you're looking at the total score, 1000 is average, 1200 is good, 1400 is great, and 1600 is perfect. Okay. Now, I told you that there were some recent changes to the SAT, so I wanted to go over those now. These are the important updates. Number one, there is no essay included in the SAT test. They used to have an essay. It is no longer available. There is no timed essay. However, I want to remind you that it is important to teach your child to write a quick essay in a half an hour or an hour. It's an extremely useful thing, especially if your child will be going to college. I can't tell you how many times those quick essays will be put to use in college. It is literally the only thing my children have consistently said thank you for teaching them, right? In fact, just a few months ago, my younger son, he said it again, and he's in his 30s. He said, "Thank you for teaching me to write a quick essay." He's still thankful for that skill. So no essay is required. Essays are still important. Number two, the big change. The SAT is going to be online in the future. It will still be given only at schools and test centers with a proctor. It is not planned to be an in-home test. Calculators will be allowed. At most schools, you'll be using your own personal computer, and they will only be providing computers in certain areas. This online change is going to be gradual over the next 2 years. So congratulations, you're in the time of flux. It will be digital internationally in 2023, and it will be digital inside the United States in 2024. The next thing is probably the biggest change is that the SAT is becoming an adaptive test, a computerized adaptive test. That is supposed to make it a perfect fit for every single student. They tailor the questions based on what they get right or what they get wrong. It means the test will be shorter and fewer answers will be missed. They're hoping that students will have a more positive experience because they don't have all of these negative feedback as they get more and more wrong answers. It means a more precise score because it's personalized for each student. And it also means that every student might see a completely different test than the person right next to them. Okay. So it's going to become adaptive in the future. Now, for more information, I do have a blog post on the SAT change that is on my blog. Okay. Now, here's what I want you to write down. The SAT homeschool code 970000. The test administrators are supposed to know. I keep thinking one day I'm not going to need to tell this to people. And yet literally every year people freak out and say they don't know the code. They're supposed to know the code. What is my code? They call me, what's the code? Right? This is the code. Write down the code. Again, the test administrators, the proctors are supposed to know. It's never supposed to be an issue. And yet every year it's an issue. Okay. So this is the code. And what it does is it says that the student's high school is homeschooling. That's what it says. All right, now we're going to move on to the ACT because we have successfully survived the SAT. Yay us, right? Now in this section, I'm going to teach you all about the ACT test, but mostly I want you to notice what is the same, okay? So if you don't want to fill out your workbook with all of the words that I'm giving you, you can just write same in the things that remain the same, okay? Now I did put down the website for the ACT so that you can look it up later. They don't seem to be as flighty as the SAT. They don't seem to change things as much. All right, we are now on the top of page 4. The ACT is used for college admission, college scholarships, annual assessment, same exact purpose. Same exact purpose. Not only that, colleges will usually take either one. Okay. The ACT, I recommend you take it twice again. Early spring of 11th, late spring of 11th. You take it in public or private high school. Same. That's easy, right? Now let's talk about what is different about the ACT test. The contents are different. Now, you remember the SAT has reading, writing, math, no essay. But the ACT has reading, writing, math, science, and an optional essay. So let's go through this. The math is about the same level as the SAT test. It's about the same amount of difficulty, mostly algebra and geometry. Lots of stuff below that math level, not too many things above that math level. The science is not chemistry, biology, or physics. The science is what they call interpreting data and understanding the scientific process. Okay, so you're looking at a chart. What does that mean? That sort of thing. They do combine the math and science into what they call a STEM score: science, technology, engineering, math. STEM score that combines math and science. I've not seen a college use that score yet, but they provide it. And then with English, they have specific scores in reading and writing, understanding the language, complex texts. And then they have that optional essay, a 40-minute timed essay. They combine the English reading and writing into one score together. It's not a STEM score, right? They call it an ELA score, English language score. Now, this test is mostly multiple choice. It takes 3 to 4 hours, depending on if you take the essay. Let me explain the scoring. They're completely different numbers. Basically, each subject gets a score of 1 to 36. Okay, so math is 1 to 36, science is 1 to 36, English 1 to 36, reading 1 to 36. Look closely at the writing score. That's different. The essay is scored 2 to 12. They have two different teachers, actual human beings, who read the essay within 2 minutes and give it a score of 1 to 6, and they add those two teachers' scores together. They do literally have 2 minutes per essay. Then what the ACT does is they find a composite score that is an average of all of these. On the SAT test, they combined them, and on the ACT, they find the average. Now, generally speaking, a composite score of 20 to 21 is average. 28 is very good, and perfect is 36. So the closer you get to 36. My gut feel tells me that after about 32 on the ACT, that's when you can really get a full tuition. All right, the ACT also has a homeschool code. Here is the homeschool code. You'll notice how it is exactly 1 digit less than the SAT code, 969999. Again, test administrators are supposed to know, but yet every year there's that one school that the test administrator doesn't know, and people are calling me, so I still include this information on my presentation. Okay, now there's one more college admission test that we need to talk about, and it's called the CLT. Has anybody heard of the CLT before? Can you type in yes or no? I just want to know how familiar you are with the CLT. Okay. I did put down the website. Looks like we're more on the nose than the yeses. Okay. The website is cltexam.com. It is an alternative to the SAT or ACT. It's an alternative that is not based on Common Core. It's currently accepted by a very small number of colleges that are generally liberal arts colleges, but their popularity is growing among homeschoolers. So when it's your turn to do college admission tests with your children, make sure you look at this one just to see, is it going to be helpful or not? The test was developed to focus more on classical education. So, for example, the reading sections are about like C.S. Lewis or Martin Luther King Jr., something like that. Let me give you a few quick facts on the CLT. It is an online test, but it does have a proctor. It's not pencil and paper. It is given at local testing centers. Science is not included. There is no essay. It is very short, 2 hours long. The SAT might be 4 hours, 3 hours when it goes online. So this is much shorter, 2 hours long. Here's the thing I need you to pay close attention to, though. The CLT is not accepted by all colleges. So you need to be sure it's a good fit. And I do suggest that you take the SAT or ACT as well. There are 5,300 colleges in the United States, 5,300, and only 200 colleges currently use the CLT. Now, philosophically, the CLT fits some families best, but that's not going to help you pay for tuition. So you need to balance that information. The CLT includes English, which is verbal reasoning, reading, which includes both grammar and writing, and math, which they call quantitative analysis. They also have a earlier version, younger versions of the test, the CLT 8 and the CLT 10. All right. Now, you can find information on the CLT at cltexam.com. Again, this test is new. Few colleges accept it, but it could be the perfect test for your student in your college. I don't have a lot of time left though, so I really want to focus on the SAT and ACT since those are accepted by all colleges. I just want you to keep your eyes open for CLT in the future. Now, I know many of us were sharing our biggest concern was choosing which test is best. And I'm sure you're feeling like your head is going to explode. So let me explain. Statistically, 1/3 of kids do better on the SAT, 1/3 do better on the ACT, and 1/3 do equally well on both. Geographically, students who live on the East Coast and the West Coast generally take the SAT, and students who are in the middle of the country generally take the ACT. Genetically, studies claim that in general, boys do better on the SAT and girls do better on the ACT. Academically, science is included on the ACT. Maybe a science lover would do better on the ACT. And here's the truth, which test is best? Nobody cares about statistics. Statistics are not always right. Have we not proven that over the last 2 years? Statistics are not always right, and they may not apply to your child because your child is not a statistic. Now, homeschoolers have the advantage on the SAT or ACT because we get to choose which test makes your child look like a genius. And that is my big pro tip. I want you to choose the best test for each child in your family. It could be different for different children. This is by far the biggest money-saving tip I'm going to be giving you today. So I want you to understand this concept. Gold Care Club members are always telling me that this made a huge difference in scholarships. Colleges accept both the SAT and ACT. Flat out, they just do. In general, public schools only offer one test, but you can do whatever you want. It does not matter what test your neighbor's child takes. You can choose the best test, not the one test that they offer. And you can choose whichever test makes your child look like a genius. So let me explain, how do you do that? The best test will instantly raise your child's test score. One of my Gold Care members told me that her son was in the 49th percentile in one test. And when she gave him a sample in the other one, he was in the 79th percentile. Can you believe that? From 49, below average, to 79, super smart, by just taking the right test for your child. So in another child, this might make the difference between just getting a little bit of scholarship help versus getting a full tuition scholarship help. And that's why this matters. How do you choose the best test? It's all about brownies. If anybody knows me, you know I'm all about the cookies and the brownies. You can ignore geography, pay no attention to the test your neighbors takes, be a homeschool pro, pick the test that is best for your child. Here's how. Take a simple SAT test at home, timed in the kitchen while cookies are baking. The SAT pairs best with chocolate chip cookies. Write that down. Take the sample SAT with chocolate chip cookies. The next thing you do is you take a sample ACT test at home. again, timed in the kitchen while baking. I find that the ACT pairs best with brownies. A little bit of chaos in the kitchen mimics the test taking environment. When the kids finish the test, this sample test at home, full length timed, they can go out and play and they can eat their treats. Nice reward for the day. And then what you do while they go off to play is you compare their test scores by percentile and you choose which test makes your child look smarter before they even start to study. And then you identify a test prep plan for the one test that makes your child look the best. Okay? Now, don't forget, we're trying to have them take the test that makes them automatically look smarter. Let's say you are like my Gold Care member, where her son was, say, in the 50th percentile on one test and the 75th percentile on the other test. And then you start studying, and instead of being in the 75th percentile, you're in the 95th percentile. That's why taking this strategy will instantly raise their test score and continuously raise their test score if they do test prep. Okay, so that makes us freak out yet again. What about test prep? We haven't talked about test prep much, have we? It's different than the PSAT. Remember, the PSAT, the test prep, is about literacy, right? Test prep for SAT or ACT is a little bit different because you're trying to prepare for the test, but also homeschool like a normal person without, say, going crazy. So in this section, I'm going to talk you through this. This is the part where I make your life easier, less stressful. This is the part where I teach you how to ace the test to the best of your child's ability. Now, here's the thing you need to understand. Some people wish that they could pay $1,000 for just the right test prep company to ace the test. But that is not statistically backed up by facts. The best test prep is not about how much money you spend. It's about whether or not the student is engaged in learning. Now, as a homeschool parent, I'm reasonably confident that you are able to motivate your student to be engaged in learning. That's what we do all day long. And so for most homeschoolers, you don't need to pay, say, $1,000 on test prep. You can just have the test prep done at home. So let's talk about how to do this. How do you test prep? Number one is you choose the study materials that are for the best test. You begin with a book filled with real test questions for the specific test that you're planning to use that's best for your child. This will help your child become familiar with test questions. And then you're practicing regularly with these real tests. So it will become very familiar. Now, when you choose these materials, basically you're buying a book that might cost $30. You're using it at home, and it can increase their test scores significantly as long as your child is motivated to actually do the work. All right, then you want to schedule test preparation. And here's what I suggest. I call this my dream scenario. Not everybody has a dreamy life, but sometimes you have a dreamy life, right? In my dream scenario, your child would do one section of their best test each day. A section might be 30, maybe even 40 minutes long. And they're doing one section each day. And when I say each day, I literally do mean 3 times a week would be fantastic. And then in a dream scenario, they do one timed full length test each month. Okay, so that helps them learn how to sit still for 3 to 4 hours. And then I recommend taking one timed essay each week. Again, there are 2 reasons for teaching this essay. Number one is as ACT prep. And number 2 is when you go to college, you need to write an essay for essay tests, which are frequent in college. So even if it's not on the test, I still think it's helpful. Okay, so that's how you schedule it. But here's some things that you need to know that are real pro tips. How do you prepare for a test that is going to be online. You do it in two ways. You do test prep both in pencil and online. Okay. So they do the questions that they put on the online tests are going to be basically the same as are in these paper and pencil booklets, right? So they're practicing the questions in pencil. And then once a month, when you're taking the full length test, you have them do that online. Now, there is no practice online yet, but I'm sure they will develop it. And I'm sure that they would love to sell you some online practice tests that, you could buy as well in the future. Anyway, so that's how you prepare for that. The second thing to remember about test preparation is that you can put that on the transcript. Maybe your test prep is, you're working hard on the reading and writing an essay, and, once a week there's the math section, but it's mostly going to be things that you put into your course description in English. Other people are doing their English program separately and also are teaching test prep. And for them, they might have a separate class on their transcript called study skills. Only do that if you have enough hours doing test prep on its own to add to that class that you call study skills. But let's talk about the soft skills. They're so important on the PSAT, right? Being calm and relaxed when you take the test. And so these soft skills also matter with the SAT or ACT. They need to be familiar with the test, which is why you're having them take, a whole section each day so they get really familiar with the questions. And then you want them to become familiar with the environment, which is why they're taking the PSAT in the test prep location, why they're taking a standardized assessment with other homeschoolers, and why they take that full-length SAT test online once a month so they get familiar with that. And then you want them to show up rested, hydrated, not hungry, no sugar rush, sugar crash. And you want them to have an attitude of being calm, relaxed, and confident, knowing that a simple fill in the bubble test will not do anybody any bodily harm. There is no reason for them to freak out. And these soft skills are how you put the information, how you get the information out of their head. Test prep, practicing with regular test questions, that's how you get the information into their head. Soft skills is how you get the information out of their head. Okay. Now we've covered a lot of acronyms. And so I want to go over right now how to get the very best possible results out of your test scores. How do you use test scores to earn college admission and scholarships so that it's not just about test prep? It's not about the score you get. It's the result you get from the score that you get, okay? You can use test scores for college admission and scholarships when you understand reach, fit, and safety. So here's what you need to do. For best results, you compare your child's test score to the college's average test score. Okay. And it's publicized right on their website, or, a simple Google will find the college's average SAT or ACT test score. And then after you've compared these things, you want to apply for a variety of schools, including reach, fit, and safety. Let me explain. A reach school means your child may qualify. Your test scores are lower than average, but you meet the requirements. The reach schools are all Ivy League schools, all military academies are always reach for everyone. The second kind of school you apply for is fit schools, those that are an actual perfect match academically. Your test scores are the average test scores that you find at that school. And a safety school means your child is almost certain to gain admission because their test scores are higher than most people at that school, and your child exceeds requirements at that school. Now, listen carefully. If your test scores are higher, that means you're one of the smartest candidates they will see. That means that you are more likely to get scholarships. Okay? Reach, fit, and safety. One other important thing to write down is that you need to apply to 4 to 8 colleges for the best scholarships. This is the only way that you can really avoid disappointment and avoid huge college debt. Okay, 4 to 8 colleges is the sweet spot. Up to 12, fine, go ahead. More than 12, not going to help you. 4 to 8, the best possible place to be. Now, I want to give you a pro tip here. Okay, you can help the colleges super score. Remember how I told you to have your child take the test twice and the best score earns scholarships? Well, some colleges, not all, some colleges will super score the test results. So let me use the SAT, for example. It has basically an English score and a math score. Well, by taking the test twice, a college might super score and pick your best English score and your best math score and put them together into one super score that might be higher than either of those tests that you took on your own. So take the test twice and list scores side by side, and that way you can help the colleges super score. Now, you cannot put only the super score on the transcript because that would be saying that they took a score that was untruthful. Okay. But you can list both the test administrations and the super score side by side. All right, now there's some other tests that are involved in college admissions, subject tests that a guidance counselor needs to coordinate. And colleges first look at the SAT or ACT to provide proof that an applicant understands classes listed on their high school transcript, right? The SAT or ACT. But some colleges want additional validation, and they use subject tests to make the difference. Now, I know what you're thinking. Subject tests, are you kidding me? There's more. But subject tests demonstrate information in just one subject at a time. There's a test in chemistry. There's a test in American history. There's a test in economics. Okay. Now, there are 2 subject tests that you need to understand. There are the AP tests. These are college level essay tests. And the CLEP tests that are multiple choice on a computer at a test location. Okay. So I want you to make sure you write down the link to the book that I'm giving you today, tinyurl.com/APCLEP. While you're writing that down, I just want to remind you there used to be a test called the SAT-2 subject test that no longer exists. It is completely gone. Now, again, I don't have time to go into the detail of subject tests and also finish on time, which is why I've gone over a little bit, but this book should get you where you need to go. Okay. Now, I understand that test coordination is a little freaky, but it's only one of your jobs as a guidance counselor. And I know that that is an anxiety provoking moment when you realize you are the guidance counselor. Yes, they got rid of the SAT subject test, but they did not get rid of AP or CLEP. Okay. But it's going to be okay. Let me teach you about being the guidance counselor. You see, the national counselor to student average is 478 students per adult counselor. The recommended counselor to student is 250 to 1. However, what I would like you to do is type in on chat, what is your student to adult ratio? Now, this is high school student to adult living in your home, right? High school student to adult living in your home, right? Excellent. People are getting it. Some people have 4 adults living in their home. Plus, you have the homeschool advantage, which is, not to put too fine a point on it, just love, right? You're deeply invested in the success of your children as independent, thriving young adults who don't have a huge amount of college debt. Now, remember too that the guidance counselor knows that there are important character qualities that are not measured by tests. Your job is to somehow to convey these awesome qualities in your student so that it is immediately obvious to the colleges how awesome your student is. Now, when you look at the big picture, high school testing is just one piece of your responsibilities, right? You also have to plan classes, arrange a college search, prepare for the homeschool records, guide the college admission process. And then when you take a bigger step back, you realize that it's not even being the guidance counselor isn't even the biggest thing that you do when you're homeschooling high school, right? You're not just the guidance counselor. You're also the teacher, the caring parent. You're in charge of home and family care. They want dinner every night, people. And you're in charge of character development and discipline so that people around you don't roll their eyes when your kid does something wacky, right? So this is a lot of responsibility. And I know that you would rather homeschool than stress about homeschooling, but you also understand that in the big picture, your responsibilities have life altering complications when things are left undone or not done well. But nobody has the time or energy to make sense of it all. And you long for a source of easily accessible information that's not overwhelming, that's given in a way that fits your learning style. And that's what I'm here for. I'm here to help you get the information that you need. And I would like to encourage you to come on in to the Gold Care Club. We've got coffee and you can talk about what you need to know and get the training and support that you crave with the Gold Care Club. What is the Gold Care Club? It's friendship and support and information. It comes with weekly personal consultations by phone or by email to help you guide you through the tough times or nudge you to take action or cheer for you along the way. It's a professional homeschool mentoring and coaching from me. I don't judge you. I don't evaluate your children. I come alongside to help like a best friend. Now, the monthly membership resources are parent education classes. There are 5 new classes each month with tools and resources to help you understand even the most complex information. It includes an ebook of the month, schedule of the month, course description of the month, resource pack of the month, convention workshops every month, and 5 continuing education classes each month. You don't have to do it all. You can take the continuing education classes on your own time when it fits your schedule. You can collect your questions to discuss what you need to with me, and then call or email whenever you want a consultation. I do not call and bother you. I only sit by the phone and wait to answer your questions. Now, with your purchase of the Gold Care Club, you get invited to my private Facebook group. That way you get extra access to myself and my staff who are also knowledgeable homeschool parents. This is great because that parent to parent support is worth its weight in gold, and we all benefit from sharing our experiences and questions. Now, with the purchase of the Gold Care Club, there are everyday value bonuses with your purchase. This is true whether you're purchasing right now or whether you're listening to the recording. Bonus 1 is making the grades. Bonus 2 is the high school testing pack. And bonus 3 is the transcript and records pack. So you can get all of that information in easily. All of the bonuses are lifetime access. I also have a fast action bonus for everyone, even if you are listening on the recording. This is the Cozy Convention Pack. It includes 8 convention classes. They come with lifetime access. They were filmed in conventions across the United States. If you can't go to a convention this year, if you wish there was a convention just for homeschooling high school, this is your solution. It includes finding curriculum, Christian homeschool success, grades and credits, 1-hour transcript workshop, college planning, college admission and scholarships, gifted education, and creating transcripts for your unique child. These 8 workshops are going to end up being the biggest benefit from purchasing today. Now, the total value of the Gold Care Club is $1,082, and the regular price for the Gold Care Club is $97 per month with all those bonuses. But I have a discount code for you today. You use coupon code GCC67 and you're only going to be paying $67 per month. That is a low investment for the huge benefit that you receive. You get personalized support. There's no long-term commitment. You can stay for as many months as you want. You can quit at any time. You save $30 per month for as long as you stay a member, and you get lifetime access to the bonuses that I've mentioned. Now, when you decide to purchase, this up here is where you put in the coupon code. Make sure you hit the apply button. That's the only way the price will change to $67 a month. Make sure you hit apply. Now, I want you to notice that you can add a bonus here at the bottom. Let me show you that. If you're a person who really needs books in order to learn well, I would like you to consider getting the bookshelf. This includes great books that are going to help you get up and running really quickly. The regular price of the bookshelf is $198, but you can add it for $157. So it saves you over $50 and you get free shipping. If you don't click the checkbox, then you don't get the bookshelf. It only comes when you add that to your order. You click in the box and then you agree to terms and conditions, and then you complete your purchase. You can also, to your order, add more help for college-bound students. This is especially helpful if you have an 11th grader or will have a 12th grader next year. When you purchase, this is lifetime access to the College Launch Solution Core Training Module. You get $20 off the regular price. For many people, homeschooling high school isn't about getting a diploma. They're trying to get college admission and college scholarships. And this is specifically going to help the college-bound students. It includes the college admission seminar for teens. If you've ever wished that somebody else would teach your teenager what they needed to do for college admission, I volunteer for the job. It will teach you as the parent what you need to know about applications. You'll learn to be the guidance counselor. You will learn to be the college coach. You'll understand college admission and scholarships, and it includes other resources as well. There is a 30-day money-back guarantee on this edition. It includes a lifetime access to the core training module when you keep the purchase. One last thing, this is only for people who are here during this live workshop, not during the recording. If you choose to become a member and you add something to your order today, whether it's the bookshelf or the core training module or both, if you add something to your order today, then we will throw in a $300 value bonus. That's 20 additional parent training classes. These are online classes. They will be added to your account for free when you purchase and add one thing to your order. These are also online classes with lifetime access. Okay, I am ready to take your questions. And so if you want to fill in your questions now, I'll be happy to answer them, but I want to answer Wendy's question first. Does this replace my silver level? Yes, it does. So the Gold Care Club and the Silver Training Club, you don't pay for them both at the same time. It's an automated system so that once you buy gold, as long as you use the same email, the system has to know you're the same person, right? But when it does do this, then you will replace the Silver Training with the Gold Care Club. The difference is interesting. You know, the Silver Training Club has those 5 classes each month, which is nice if you're overwhelmed. It's a manageable, small, okay? But the difference is with the Gold Care Club, the personal consulting and the additional resources that are available. With the Gold Care Club, it includes the course description of the month, the workshop of the month, the convention workshop of the month. There's an ebook every month. There's a schedule of the month. There's the library of articles each month. And so it goes beyond what the Silver training does. So if you have enjoyed the Silver Training Club, Wendy, I think you'll really like the Gold Care Club because it has everything in the Silver, but more, and the ability for you and me to talk together. Okay. All right. Kathleen's question is, what is a proctor? Excellent question. Thank you. A proctor is an adult in the room with the test who is in charge of making sure that nobody cheats. So in the past, the proctor was the one who would pass out the sheets of paper and be walking up and down the hall and say, you have 1 minute left or 2 minutes left, or okay, we're going to take a 15-minute break, find the bathroom, be back here. And that's what the proctor does. There are, in a test situation, there are multiple proctors about the room for the SAT, ACT, and PSAT. And there can be a huge variety. My Gold Care member, one of them was telling me that at one test, the proctor forgot to remind them about the 5 minutes left, 1 minute left, and it really messed up their child. They went to a different test environment. They had better test proctors, and her son's test score went significantly higher. So the quality of test proctors, okay, the test proctors come from the school where you're taking the test. And so the quality of the test proctor varies depending on the quality of the school. One of my Gold Care members, she said she took her daughter to a nearby state actually to get a better school environment to take testing. I believe she had a relative that was teaching at the school. All righty, so Sheila's question. Hi, Sheila. We've been practicing as recommended. My 10th grader hasn't ever been able to complete the questions in any of the sections within the allotted time. When given no time constraints, he achieves very highly, but within the time constraints, he leaves about 20% unanswered. Any advice? Yes, I have advice. Sheila, I notice your last name starts with a B. My last name starts with a B as well. One of the best things that you can do is to give your child one letter that they always use when they can't answer a question in time. Okay. So you can, as you're going through grading each of those test questions, you can help them to identify which questions should they just not even try to answer. It's math that's way beyond what they're doing. It's English that it takes them too long. Maybe other people could read it and answer it in time, but your child couldn't. You identify which questions they shouldn't be answering. And then that is the question they always just put down a B, always a B. Now, for other people, a girl named Annie might always use an A, okay? Or Carolyn would always use a C. But yours, Sheila, because your last name starts with a B, always use a B to answer those questions. Now, for you, it's going to be more important that you give that full length test each month so that your child gets practice sitting there getting a little faster in the grand scheme of things to get it all done. Okay. Now, when you're doing your test prep, you can also give each daily section timed so that they can get faster at it. Now, that's what's going to happen for most students. But Sheila, occasionally this will happen because your child has a diagnosed or undiagnosed learning disability. On the SAT test or the ACT test, your child can get accommodation from the College Board or the ACT company if your child has a diagnosis. The problem is that it can be pretty expensive to achieve a diagnosis. It takes a lot of time to achieve accommodation, but it can be extremely worthwhile. If your child is missing 20% unanswered questions, and most accommodation is you get double time or time and a half. That is enough to get him to answer, or him or her to answer all of those questions. So it would raise the test score by literally 20% higher, right? So if your child had an undiagnosed or diagnosed learning disability, getting accommodation is going to be worth the effort for you. Okay. But for many kids, it's just a matter of taking the practice sections each day timed. Okay. Kathleen asked, does Canada use the SAT test too? I have been told that they do, especially when you want to go to the United States colleges, but I believe that they do use the SAT and ACT in Canada as well. Basically, the College Board is a international organization that would like to sell, it would like to rule the world, right? Sell tests to the entire world. Okay, Jennifer's question, how many credits do you assign on the transcript for test prep? Excellent question. Jennifer, I noticed that your last name starts with the letter D. So if your child had trouble answering all of the questions, your child would always fill in the letter D on the answer key, okay? But as far as test prep, it depends on how much time you actually spend. For me, we spent about a half an hour a day on test prep. I don't think I put test prep on my transcript because most of it I would just put it right into their English course description to beef up the English that my children did. Also, with me, the test prep was a lot of that was on essay writing, and I've already confessed my preference to teaching all homeschoolers how to write a quick essay, and so my test prep was swayed heavily into English. So I used it within my English class. But when you have it separate from your English class and you're doing test prep, you estimate how many hours your child is spending. So if you've signed up for a test prep and group, and they've told you that you come to class for an hour a week and then you spend 4 hours per week doing these things, that's 5 hours per week. If you spend 5 hours per week, that's going to be one high school credit as long as you do it most of the school year. If you're doing test prep and you're doing what I suggest, where it's about a half an hour every day, some days you miss a day, other days you're doing it for an hour. In that case, you would give a half a credit for the test preparation. Now, on the transcript, though, please do not call it test prep. Let me repeat. Do not call it test prep on the transcript. You're not saying, I am a test making machine. I teach to the test. Instead, I want you to call the class study skills. Study skills. I have taught my child to study at a college level. My child knows how to study for college. My child is going to get an A in college because they know how to study in high school. And that's why you call it study skills instead. Okay. Melanie says, how many of the tests do we need to take in order to qualify for scholarships? At least one college I've looked at is saying that homeschoolers have to present ACT and SAT for admission. A counselor advised that that's probably for scholarships. Yes, it's probably for scholarships. I have not seen a school recently that required both. I've only seen colleges that require one or the other. But often they rely on some sort of test score, especially in homeschoolers or especially in students who attend an unaccredited public school, which happens across the nation. There are unaccredited public school, and they rely on these test scores to know that they want that student at that school. Now, in my opinion, the reason why some colleges are now going test optional is because they want to have more applicants. You see, the more applicants a college has, the higher they're ranked on the US News and World Report college rankings. They want to have more applicants and reject more people. Let's see, how can I get more applicants? I know, test optional, no essay required. Sometimes they'll even say it's free to apply, especially with the Common App. If you have these characteristics, it's free to apply. That's how they increase the number of applicants. It doesn't mean they're going to give you admission or scholarships, but it does mean that their stock goes up in US News and World Report. So, as far as how many tests do you have to take, I still recommend that you take the SAT or ACT twice, one or the other, in the spring. If you have a good test score, SAT or ACT, you can probably just speak to the college and say, look at my child's test scores on the SAT. Are you sure you need ACT scores as well? Chances are they're going to say no. This is a working relationship you have with actual human beings. So they're reasonable people. Let's say that they said, absolutely not. We have to have an ACT. I still want you to take the test that's best for your child twice. Then you'll ask the question and then you'll pivot. Okay, if you want to go to that college, you're going to have to study for and take the ACT next. And this is what you say to your student. Okay. Now, for best scholarships, you want to take that PSAT in 10th grade. So that you can identify, are we talking about National Merit Scholar or not? Okay. One of the ebooks of the month on the Gold Care Club is actually on National Merit Scholarship. So if you needed more help on the National Merit Scholarship and you were a Gold Care member, all you'd have to do is send me some information. Okay. Tabitha's question. Hi, Tabitha. Tabitha says, I have been researching study.com for CLIP and AP classes. How do you feel about that website? I have no concerns about that website at all, but I don't think that it is the best preparation for those tests all the time. So you're looking at more, will your child learn best from that method? And it's fine, but I do think that for SAT or ACT prep, you're going to get more bang from your buck by using paper and pencil and getting a book from home. The problem with the Khan Academy and the question a day that the College Board will send you, for example, the problem with that is that you run into the question that we experienced earlier, where teenagers were running out of time. They weren't used to sitting there having this timed information about, they have to get it done. They only have this amount of time, and they don't have that time understanding. And that's why having one question at a time is not super helpful. Okay. Christy says, hi, Christy, good to see you. Do I have to submit all SAT, ACT scores if they don't improve? Is there any consequence to taking the PSAT multiple times? I don't want you to overtest your children. End of story. Okay. But if your child if you've given a sample SAT or ACT and your child actually studies, their test scores should go up. If they don't improve, that is probably the one way that I would encourage you to get a test prep help outside of the home. Something is whatever, and they're not settling down to get it done. There is no harm in taking the PSAT once per year. But if you take the PSAT more than once a year, they might get frustrated, and it would be feel more like teaching to the text, and you'll get more value out of just educating them at home rather than taking test after test after test. It backfires in schools, and it backfires with homeschoolers as well. Okay, Evangeline says, what about athletes? My kiddo is on the NCAA track path. Does that affect when you take the test? So here's what you need to know. If your child is in a situation where anything unusual is going on, it's really helpful to have the Gold Care Club membership, because with the Gold Care Club, I do have an ebook on NCAA preparation. I have information I can give you on NCAA. There's a NCAA compliant transcript template. There's certain things that you have to fill out for the NCAA. They require course descriptions. Often having course descriptions is helpful for scholarships. It's not often strictly required, but it is required for NCAA. Okay. But as far as tests, no, the tests that you take for NCAA are the same. Okay. If anybody has any hesitations about the Gold Care Club, or if you'd like to know what is included, if you could put that into your question, I'd be more than happy to answer that for you. Julia says, is it okay for students to take their first test in the spring of 11th grade and their second in the fall of 12th grade? Okay, so the reason why I want you to take it 2 times in 11th grade is so that you have 2 test results and you can choose the best one. You can see how test prep helps, and all tests are completed before they start applying. You start applying for college in September of senior year. You really want to have those tests out of the way by senior year. The other thing that's the problem is that it's very difficult to talk a 12th grader into studying for and taking a test. I mean, if you're having difficulty now, you're going to have twice as much difficulty in 12th grade getting them to take this test, getting them to study for the test. So you're trying to avoid taking a test in 12th. You're trying to avoid test prep in 12th, if at all possible, because it is that difficult. It's like childbirth painful for the parent. Okay. So instead, you want them to take the test twice in 11th grade. And then if they need higher scores for some reason, they will continue their test prep through summer before 12th grade and take it first time it's offered in 12th grade. Okay. All righty. Okay, we got Betsy had the same question and I gave the same answer. Wendy says, in your dream scenario test preparation, how far in advance do you begin? Okay, that's a good question because it depends on your child. If you have a child that is already completed geometry in high school, they will not experience a great deal of test anxiety from doing test prep. There is enough Algebra 1 and geometry in test prep to make a child feel stupid if they haven't already had it in high school. So if your child's already taken geometry and they are in 9th grade or 10th grade, you can start test prep at that point and it won't do them harm. Okay. That is what I did with my child. He was quite ahead in math. We started test prep when he was in 9th grade. He raised his SAT score by 200 points per section. He got almost a perfect score doing that dream scenario that I talked about in test prep. Because he did it for 2 years in a row, he was able to almost get a perfect score. For another student, you would wait until 11th grade and maybe they just had completed algebra 1 and they haven't done their geometry, but at least they've done their algebra 1, and at least you waited until they had really good algebra 1 skills, and then you did test prep during 11th grade. I suggest test prep in 11th grade, at the very beginning of 11th grade for kids who are behind. I suggest test prep starting in 10th grade, ninth grade for kids who are very far ahead, and in 10th grade for many kids who have already completed algebra 1, or if they have completed geometry, that's even better. Okay. Risa's question, where do you obtain the ACT or SAT sample test? That is on my website. And so if you go to sample SAT on my website, you should find the blog post. Matt, I can't remember the name for the blog post for the SAT sample test. So if you could pop that in there, that's good. CW says, why don't you suggest taking the SAT for fall of 11th grade? Excellent question. It's because many 11th graders haven't had the geometry completed by then. So you're trying to get as much geometry as possible. Also, you want the scores to be as close to 12th grade as possible, but not into 12th grade. Okay. And that's why having it at the end of 11th grade is helpful. Through the pandemic, I've been suggesting that people separate the administrations as much as possible. So they might have like a December all the way through May. They're registered for each one because so many were being canceled by the school or the state or the school district. That way, that would still give them 2 administrations at some point. Let's see. Lisa says, how long is ideal for test prep? I'm asking because I have an 11th grader already. And did you mention a good test prep course? Okay. So Lisa, if you have an 11th grader right now, what I would do is today give a sample SAT and a sample ACT. That is located on my website. If you go to my article on college admission tests, there's a sample right there. So today you'd give them a sample of each of those tests. You would compare and get the one that was best for your child. You would order the book from Amazon. You'd have it delivered as quickly as possible. Starting on Friday, maybe Monday, you would start test prep. And then what you would do immediately is sign them as soon as you've checked which one is the best test for your child. You would immediately sign them up, have them registered for the test that makes them look smarter, in the hope that their test prep would be consistent and effective over the months between now and when it's administered. Okay. How should I wait to see how my child does before submitting scores to college? When you do the test prep that I'm suggesting, you will know what their test scores are going to look like. And so you will be able to know about approximately their score. And so you don't need to be nervous about submitting that. Okay. If your test scores tend to be low or very different depending on how your child does, then you might want to not submit scores until you have seen it. Let me just mention one more time the bonus. If you're having any sort of hesitation about purchasing today, I just wanted to remind you that if you add anything to the purchase of the Gold Care Club today, we will throw in the $300 value bonus, and I'll leave the titles up for you. Risa says, how does one apply for accommodation? That is a complicated process that it's you as the guidance counselor interacting with the SAT company or the ACT company. You have to have an official recent diagnosis by a doctor, which is expensive unless your school district is going to pay for it. The benefit of achieving accommodation, though, is that it allows you to get accommodation for your child even in college. So the accommodations that you get for the SAT or ACT test will last in college. So if your child gets double time to take the SAT, they will get double time to take tests in college. So it carries with you into college. All right. Christy says, does the bookshelf offer to purchase today include all of our books? Let me go back to the bookshelf offer. There it is. No, this just includes a subset of the books. We do have an additional packet for the rest of the books, but we didn't want to overwhelm people with the price. And so these are the ones that people buy the very most. And so that's why we did that. Okay. Um, let's see. I'm almost done with questions. If you have any questions, now is the time. Natasha says you can get the evaluations done through your health insurance. That's great information. Some insurances will cover it and some won't. So you have to be very, very careful about that. All right, so I just wanted to remind everybody of the coupon code is GCC67. And it's time for us to end our class today. Thank you so much for being patient through anything. Let me give you one more time the free gift today, the information on AP and CLEP. So make sure that you have downloaded that so you get the information on AP and CLEP. You're welcome, Kathy. It was good to see you. I hope that today has made your life easier, made test prep easier for your student, has made their test scores higher and got you great scholarships, because that's my mission, is to help you with that. One thing I wanted to mention, if you're a little overwhelmed with the thought of the Gold Care Club and you're hesitating because of the price of the Gold Care Club, you can consider the Silver Training Club. It does not include the personal consultations, but it does have the 5 training classes per month. It doesn't feel like drinking from a fire hose. It's more just enough, never too much, bite-sized, achievable, easy peasy. Okay, so if you're thinking that the Gold Care Club is too much, you might want to look at the Silver Training Club. And my husband will put that information on the screen if you decide that that would be helpful. Okay, and Jessica says she is feeling so much more relaxed. Yay! And Karen and Bessie said thank you. I'm just really glad to help everybody. I'm really glad that you were here with me, and I hope that it was beneficial for all of you. Alrighty, well, I hope you have a wonderful day and take care of yourselves. I know it's a stressful time of life, especially as a parent right now, and my heart hurts for you, the difficult conversations you need to have with your children, and I just want you to know I'm on your side. Okay, and I know that it's hard, and I know we get tired of having heavy conversations all the time, and you are doing a great job because you cared enough to homeschool your children and actually have those conversations that are hard. Okay. All right. Take care, everybody. I'll talk to you next time. Have a great day. Bye bye.